Welcome to United Daily Updates, your most trusted source for everything Manchester United. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. We bring you the latest news, transfer updates, match analysis, and everything else related to our beloved Red Devils. This is your home for honest, detailed, and reliable Manchester United content. Today we have a huge topic to discuss. We are going to talk about two major stories that are shaking up the Manchester United world right now. First, we will break down the midfield crisis and the transfer targets our fans are demanding. Then we will dive deep into the January exit rumours surrounding some of our players, including Zirzkee Mainoo and Joshua Zirzkee. This is going to be a long and detailed discussion because these topics deserve proper analysis. So grab a cup of tea or coffee, get comfortable, and let's get into it. Part 1. The midfield crisis and transfer demands. Let me start with a question. When was the last time you watched a Manchester United game and felt truly confident about our midfield? When was the last time you saw our midfield completely dominate the opposition, control the tempo, and make you feel like we were the better team from start to finish? It has been a while, hasn't it? This season has been particularly tough. We have been crying out for someone who can sit in front of the defense and protect our backline. We need someone who can win the ball back, break up opposition attacks, and start our own moves with quick, accurate passing. We also need someone with energy, someone who can cover ground, someone who can press high up the pitch and then track back to help the defense. The problem is that we don't have enough players who can do these things consistently. Some of our midfielders are good at certain aspects but lack in others. Some are simply not at the level we need to compete with the best teams in England and Europe. Think about the top teams in the Premier League. Manchester City have Rodri, who many consider the best holding midfielder in the world. Arsenal have Declan Rice, who cost them a fortune but has transformed their team. Liverpool have a system where multiple midfielders work together perfectly. Even teams below us in the table sometimes have better balance in midfield than we do. That is a harsh truth, but it is the truth. Our current options include Casemiro, who has been brilliant for us at times but is now getting older and slower. His legs are not what they used to be. We have Christian Eriksen, who is a wonderful footballer with great vision and passing ability, but he lacks the physical presence and defensive ability we need. We have Zirzkee Mainoo, a young talent who has shown promise, but can we really expect a teenager to solve all our problems? Then there is Scott McTominay, who works hard but divides opinion among fans. Some love his commitment and occasional goals. Others feel he is not technical enough for a team with our ambitions. Mason Mount joined us with big expectations but has struggled with injuries and form. Bruno Fernandes plays further forward most of the time. So you can see the problem. We have bodies in midfield, but we don't have the right balance. We don't have that one or two players who can truly control games and give us the platform to dominate matches. This is why the transfer window becomes so important. This is why fans spend hours debating which midfielder we should sign. This is why every transfer rumor gets analyzed to death on social media. What happened in the summer transfer window? The summer of 2024 was supposed to be different. Manchester United fans were hoping for a proper rebuild. New ownership, new ideas, new energy. We made some signings, but the midfield remained a problem area. One name kept popping up throughout the summer. Carlos Baleba from Brighton and Hove Albion. If you have been following the Premier League, you know Brighton are no longer a team that just tries to survive in the top flight. They have become a proper force, a team that plays attractive football, develops young talent, and sells players for huge profits. Baleba was one of their rising stars. Manchester United reportedly showed serious interest in bringing him to Old Trafford. The club saw something special in the young Cameroonian midfielder. They thought he could be the answer to our problems in the middle of the park. But here is where things went wrong. Brighton were not interested in selling. Not at all. They warned Manchester United off the player early in the pursuit. In simple terms, they told us to back off and look elsewhere. Brighton had their own plans for Baleba. They had just signed him, they were developing him, and they had no intention of letting him go to a rival Premier League club. This is a problem with trying to buy from clubs like Brighton. They are well run, they know the value of their players, and they don't need to sell. They can afford to tell even the biggest clubs to go away. Gone are the days when Manchester United could just show up with a big offer and expect smaller clubs to bend over backwards. So the Baleba deal died before it really got started. But United did not give up. They kept looking. They kept trying. As the transfer window moved closer to deadline day, panic started to set in. We needed a midfielder. Everyone could see it. The coaching staff knew it. The fans knew it. Even the board knew it. This is when the Conor Gallagher story emerged. The English midfielder had just joined Atletico Madrid from Chelsea in a complicated deal. He had barely settled in Spain when reports came out that Manchester United had made a late approach to bring him to Old Trafford on loan. Think about that for a second. We were trying to get a player on loan from a club he had just joined. A player who had left the Premier League specifically to start a new chapter in La Liga. A player who probably wanted stability after years of being loaned out by Chelsea. Unsurprisingly, Atletico Madrid said no. They had no interest in letting Gallagher leave immediately after signing him. The whole thing felt rushed, desperate even. It was not the kind of transfer business you expect from a club like Manchester United. And so the summer transfer window closed with our midfield problems unsolved. We had tried. We had made approaches. But we had failed to land the quality we needed. Fans were frustrated. Social media was full of angry posts. People were questioning the competence of our transfer team. How could we go into another season without fixing such an obvious problem? Why did we leave things so late? Why didn't we have better alternatives lined up? These were all fair questions. Questions that the club probably could not answer satisfactorily. But the good news is that the January transfer window is just around the corner. We will get another chance. Another opportunity to fix the problems. Another shot at bringing in the midfielder we so desperately need. The question is, who should we sign? The fan poll results. This is where things get really interesting. The People's Person, a popular Manchester United news outlet, decided to ask the fans directly. They ran a poll asking which midfielder Manchester United should target in the January transfer window. The results tell us a lot about what supporters are thinking. They give us insight into which players have caught the eye of our fanbase. They show us what kind of midfielder people believe we need. Let's break down each option and really dig into what these players would bring to Manchester United. Carlos Baleba, the fans' top choice. 38% of fans voted for Carlos Baleba. That is more than 1 in 3 supporters. Despite the failed summer approach, despite Brighton shutting the door in our face, fans still believe he is the man we need. So who exactly is Carlos Baleba? And why are so many Manchester United fans convinced he should be our next signing? Baleba is a 21-year-old midfielder from Cameroon. He joined Brighton in the summer of 2023 from French club Lille for a fee reported to be around £25 million. That might not sound like much in today's crazy transfer market, but it showed Brighton was serious about him. When he first arrived in the Premier League, Baleba took time to settle. This is normal for young players coming from abroad. The Premier League is faster, more physical, more intense than most other leagues. Players need time to adapt. But once he found his feet, Baleba started to show exactly why Brighton had paid good money for him. He is what we call an all-action midfielder. He covers every blade of grass. He is constantly moving, constantly working, constantly involved in the game. His energy levels are through the roof. In modern football, this is so important. Games are played at such a high tempo now that you need players who can keep going for 90 minutes. Players who can press high up the pitch when you are attacking, then sprint back to defend when you lose the ball. Baleba can do this. He is also versatile. He can play as a holding midfielder, sitting deep in front of the defense and protecting the backline. But he can also play in a more advanced role, getting forward to support attacks and even chip in with goals and assists. This flexibility is valuable because it gives the manager options. Physically, Baleba is very strong. He can win duels. He can out-muscle opponents. He is quick across the ground. These physical attributes are essential in the Premier League where every game is a battle. Now, Baleba has struggled for form this season. This is true. After an impressive first season, his second year has been a bit more difficult. His performances have been inconsistent. Sometimes he looks brilliant, other times he looks off the pace. But here is the thing. Even the best players go through rough patches. Even the best players have seasons where things don't quite click. This does not mean they are bad players. It does not mean they have lost their ability. There could be many reasons for Baleba's dip in form. Maybe he is feeling pressure. Maybe Brighton's overall team performance has affected him. Maybe he is still developing and learning. He is only 21 years old. Remember, players at that age are still growing, still improving, still figuring things out. From Manchester United's perspective, this dip in form might actually be an opportunity. If Baleba was playing out of his skin every week, Brighton would demand an even higher price. They might refuse to sell at any price. But if he is struggling slightly, if there are doubts creeping in, maybe Brighton would be more willing to listen to offers. Maybe a fresh start is exactly what Baleba needs. A move to a huge club like Manchester United. New teammates. New coaches. New challenges. Sometimes a change of scenery can reignite a player's career. The question is whether Brighton would sell to us in January. They refused in the summer. Would anything have changed? Would they be willing to do business now? It would probably take a very big offer. Brighton are not a poor club. They don't need money. They would only sell if we made them an offer they simply could not refuse. We are talking £50 million, maybe more. That is a lot of money for a player who is out of form and has only been in England for 2 years. But if our scouts believe in him, if our coaches think they can get him back to his best, then maybe it is worth the risk. Sometimes you have to take chances on young talent. Sometimes you have to see beyond current form and look at long-term potential. The fans have spoken. They want Belieber. They believe he is the answer. The question is whether the club agrees. Adam Wharton, the deep-lying playmaker. 33% of fans voted for Adam Wharton. That is almost as many as Belieber. Clearly, there is a lot of love for the Crystal Palace midfielder among United supporters. Wharton represents a very different type of player compared to Belieber. While Belieber is all energy and action, Wharton is more about control and composure. He is what we call a deep-lying playmaker. Someone who sits deep, receives the ball from the defenders, and then starts attacks with his passing. Think of players like Sergio Busquets for Barcelona or Andrea Pirlo for Italy and Juventus. Players who might not run around like headless chickens but who control games with their intelligence and passing ability. That is the type of player Wharton is becoming. He is only 21 years old but has already made a big impression in the Premier League. He joined Crystal Palace from Blackburn Rovers in January 2024 for around £18 million. That might seem like a bargain now considering how well he has performed. What makes Wharton special is his passing range. He can play short passes to keep possession ticking over. But he can also hit those long, 40-yard diagonal passes that split defenses open and create chances. He sees passes that other players don't see. He has time on the ball even when opponents are pressing him. This composure is rare in young players. Usually, young midfielders panic when they get pressed. They rush their decisions. They give the ball away cheaply. Wharton does not do this. He stays calm. He looks around. He finds the right pass. Crystal Palace had an incredible run last season. They went 19 games unbeaten, a run that stretched from the end of last season into this one. During that time, they won the FA Cup and the Community Shield. That is serious silverware. That is the kind of success that proves a team knows how to win. Wharton was a big part of that success. He gave Palace control in midfield. He allowed their attacking players to flourish because they knew they had someone behind them who could keep the ball and set them up. Now, you might be wondering why Crystal Palace would sell such an important player. The truth is they probably would not want to. But every player has a price. And if Manchester United came in with a big offer, Palace will have to think seriously about it. Palace are not competing for titles or Champions League places. They are a well-run club trying to stay in the Premier League and maybe push for European football. If United offered £60 or £70 million for Wharton, that money could allow Palace to rebuild their entire squad. From United's perspective, Wharton makes a lot of sense. We need someone who can control games from deep. We need someone with that passing ability. We need someone who can receive the ball under pressure and still pick the right pass. Imagine Wharton in our team. He sits deep, receives the ball from our defenders, and then plays Bruno Fernandes into space with a perfect pass. Bruno then creates a chance for our forwards. That is how it could work. That is the vision. The only question is whether he has the physical side to compete in the Premier League long term. He is not the biggest player. He is not the most physical. Can he handle being pressed by aggressive midfielders every week? Can he win his duels? Can he cover ground when we need to defend? These are fair questions. But remember, players like Busquets and Pirlo were never the most physical either. They made up for it with intelligence, positioning, and technical ability. Maybe Wharton can do the same. The fans clearly rate him. They see him as a genuine answer to our problems. And given his performances for Palace, it is easy to see why. Elliot Anderson, the surprising underdog. Here is where things get interesting. Only 15% of fans voted for Elliot Anderson. This is surprising because Anderson might actually be the most accomplished of all the players in this poll right now. Anderson plays for Nottingham Forest and has been absolutely excellent this season. He is an English midfielder who can play in multiple positions. He can play as a holding midfielder, as a box-to-box midfielder, or even in a more advanced role. This versatility is gold in modern football. His rise has been extremely fast. Last season, not many people outside of Newcastle fans knew who Elliot Anderson was. He had been at Newcastle since he was a kid, working his way through their academy. He played some games for Newcastle but never really established himself as a regular starter. Then Newcastle sold him to Nottingham Forest in the summer of 2024. Many people thought this was just another young player moving to a mid-table club where he would be decent but nothing special. How wrong they were. Anderson has been sensational for Forest. He has been one of the main reasons they have performed so well this season. His energy, his pressing, his ability to win the ball back, his passing, everything has clicked. His performances were so good that England came calling. He made his England debut this year. Think about that. A year ago, he was struggling to get games at Newcastle. Now he is playing for his country. That is an incredible turnaround. He looks on track to be part of England's World Cup squad next year. That is massive. If he is good enough for England, he is surely good enough for Manchester United. So why did only 15% of fans vote for him? Why is he not more popular in this poll? Maybe it is because Nottingham Forest are not a glamorous club. They are not Brighton with their reputation for developing talent. They are not Crystal Palace with their recent trophy success. They are just Nottingham Forest, a traditional club who have had their struggles over the years. Maybe fans don't watch enough Forest games. If you only watch Manchester United and the other big clubs, you might not have seen Anderson play much. You might not realise just how good he has been. Or maybe fans are worried about signing another British player for a huge fee. We have not had great success with expensive signings from other Premier League clubs recently. Harry Maguire, Jadon Sancho, Mason Mount, all came with big price tags and big expectations, and all have disappointed to varying degrees. But Anderson feels different. He is not being hyped to death. He is not surrounded by media noise. He is just quietly getting on with his job and performing brilliantly week after week. From a tactical perspective, Anderson would fit our system perfectly. He has the energy to play in Ruben Amorim's intense, high-pressing style. He can win the ball back quickly. He can start attacks. He can score goals too. He has chipped in with a few already this season. The big question is price. How much would Forest want for him? He only joined them this summer, and he has been one of their best players. They would not want to lose him halfway through the season. They would demand a premium price. We could be looking at £50 million or more. Some fans might think that is too much for a player who has only had one good season. But others would argue that is the going rate for quality English talent these days. I think Anderson deserves more respect from our fanbase. I think more people should be paying attention to what he is doing at Forest. He might not be the flashiest name, but he could be exactly what we need. Lucien Agoum, the budget option. Only 6% of fans voted for Lucien Agoum. That is a tiny number. Clearly, most United fans have not heard of him or don't rate him highly enough. Agoum plays for Sevilla in Spain. He is from Cameroon, just like Baindir. He is 22 years old and has been performing well in La Liga this season. The main appeal of Agoum is his price. He would likely come significantly cheaper than the Premier League options. While we might have to pay 50, 60, or 70 million pounds for Baindir, Wharton, or Anderson, we might be able to get Agoum for 25 or 30 million pounds. In today's market, that is a bargain for a midfielder who is performing well in one of Europe's top leagues. La Liga is a high-quality competition. If you can play well there, you can probably play well anywhere. Sevilla are not the force they used to be. They have had financial problems in recent years. They have had to sell their best players. They would probably be willing to do business if we made a reasonable offer. The question is whether Agoum is good enough for Manchester United. Is he just a cheap option, or is he genuinely talented? The fact that only 6% of fans want him suggests most people don't think he is at the level we need. Most people would rather we spent more money on someone proven in the Premier League. This is understandable. The Premier League is unique. It is faster and more physical than other leagues. Many players who look brilliant in Spain or Italy struggle when they come to England. They cannot handle the pace. They cannot handle being pressed constantly. They cannot handle the physical duels. We have seen this so many times. Players arrive with great reputations from other leagues and then disappoint in England. We don't want to take that risk if we can avoid it. However, there is a counter-argument. Some of the best players in Premier League history came from abroad and adapted brilliantly. Thierry Henry came from Italy. Cristiano Ronaldo came from Portugal. More recently, players like Alexis Mac Allister and Moises Caicedo came from Argentina and Ecuador and have been excellent. So maybe we should not dismiss Agoum just because he plays in Spain. Maybe he is a hidden gem waiting to be discovered. Maybe our scouts have seen something special in him. But I understand why fans are not excited about this option. When you support Manchester United, you want the best. You want proven quality. You want players who will come in and make an immediate impact. You don't want projects or gambles. If we are going to spend money on a midfielder, most fans would rather we spent it on someone we know can do the job in England. The other opinions. 6% of fans said we should look elsewhere. They don't want any of the four main options. They think there are better players available. This is fair enough. These 4 players are not the only midfielders in world football. There are hundreds of quality options playing in leagues across Europe and beyond. Maybe some fans want us to go for a bigger name. Someone like Aurelien Tchouameni from Real Madrid or Frenkie de Jong from Barcelona. World-class players who would transform our midfield immediately. The problem with these targets is they are almost impossible to sign. They play for huge clubs. They are on massive wages. They would cost over £100 million. And they probably don't want to leave their current clubs anyway. Maybe other fans want us to look at younger prospects from smaller leagues. Players in Portugal, the Netherlands, Belgium, or France who are not yet famous but have huge potential. This approach can work. We signed Lisandro Martinez from Ajax and he has been brilliant. We signed Rasmus Højlund from Atalanta and he is developing well. Sometimes it is smarter to find the next big thing rather than overpay for players who are already established. But this requires good scouting. It requires patience. It requires accepting that the player might take time to settle and develop. Not all fans have that patience, especially when we need results now. Then there is the 2% of fans who think we don't need a midfielder at all in January. I have to be honest, I don't understand this view at all. How can anyone watch Manchester United this season and not see the need for midfield reinforcement? Maybe these fans think our current players are good enough. Maybe they have faith that Zirzkee Mainoo will step up. Maybe they think we should spend our money on other positions instead. Or maybe they are just being different for the sake of it. Every poll has people who vote for the unusual option just to stand out. Whatever the reasons, they are in a tiny minority. 98% of fans agree we need a midfielder. That tells you everything you need to know about the state of our squad. Part 2. The January exit drama, Mainoo and Zirzkee. Now let's shift gears and talk about the other big story. While we are discussing who should come in during January, we also need to talk about who might be leaving. And there are some big names in the mix. The 2 main players being discussed are Zirzkee Mainoo and Joshua Zirzkee. Both are young talents who came to Manchester United with hope and promise. But both are now reportedly unhappy and considering their futures. This is a delicate situation. On one hand, we need to keep our squad depth. We cannot afford to lose too many players in January when we are competing on multiple fronts. On the other hand, we cannot keep players who are unhappy and not performing. Unhappy players bring down the mood of the whole squad. So let's look at each situation individually and try to understand what is happening. Zirzkee Mainoo, the frustrated youngster. Zirzkee Mainoo burst onto the scene last season and quickly became a fan favorite. Here was a young English midfielder coming through our academy, playing with confidence and maturity beyond his years. He looked like the future of Manchester United's midfield. But this season has been different. Very different. Mainoo has found himself on the bench more often than not. He is not getting the playing time he expected. He is not a regular starter. When he does play, it is often for short periods as a substitute. This has understandably frustrated the young player. When you are 19 or 20 years old and you have tasted first-team football, you want more of it. You don't want to sit on the bench watching others play. You want to develop. You want to improve. You want to play. Reports suggest that Mainoo is growing increasingly frustrated with his situation. He feels he deserves more opportunities. He feels he has proven himself. He wants to play regular football. The question is, what should Manchester United do about this? Some fans will say Mainoo needs to be patient. He is still very young. He has plenty of time to develop. He should wait for his chance, work hard in training, and take his opportunities when they come. This is a fair point. Not every young player can walk straight into the first team and stay there. Competition for places is healthy. It pushes players to improve. But the counter-argument is equally valid. If Mainoo sits on the bench all season, he will not develop. He will stagnate. Young players need game time to improve. They need to play matches, make mistakes, learn from them, and grow. So maybe a loan move would be the best solution for everyone. Mainoo could go to a mid-table Premier League club where he would play every week. He could get 30 or 40 games under his belt. He could return to Manchester United next season more experienced, more mature, more ready to compete for a starting place. Manchester United have reportedly told Mainoo to wait until later in the year before deciding on his future. They have not given him a firm answer about January. They want to see how the season develops. They want to keep their options open. This makes sense from the club's perspective. What if we get injuries in midfield? What if Casemiro gets suspended or Eriksen breaks down? We would need Mainoo as cover. But from Mainoo's perspective, this uncertainty is frustrating. He wants clarity. He wants to know if he will play or if he should look elsewhere for game time. Right now, the only option being discussed for Mainoo is a loan move. not a permanent transfer. The club still sees him as part of the long-term future. They just need to find the right balance between keeping him around and letting him develop elsewhere. This is a tough decision. Get it wrong, and we could lose a future star. Get it right, and Mainoo could come back next season ready to be a key player for years to come. Where could Mainoo go on loan? There are several possibilities. Premier League clubs like Bournemouth, Fulham, or Brentford would probably be interested. These are teams that play good football, give young players chances, and would provide Mainoo with regular game time. He could also go abroad. Maybe to the Netherlands or Germany, where young English players have done well in recent years. Jadon Sancho developed brilliantly at Borussia Dortmund. Jude Bellingham did the same. Maybe Mainoo could follow a similar path. The key is making sure the loan club is the right fit. We don't want to send him somewhere he will sit on the bench or play out of position. We want him at a club that will develop him, play him regularly, and help him grow as a player. This situation needs to be handled carefully. Mainoo is a talented player with a bright future. We cannot afford to mismanage him. Joshua Zirzkee, the struggling forward. Now let's talk about Joshua Zirzkee. This is an even more complicated situation than Mainoo's. Zirzkee joined Manchester United in the summer with big expectations. He had done well at Bologna in Serie A. He looked like a player with huge potential. United paid good money for him, and fans were excited to see what he could bring to the team. But things have not worked out at all. Zirzkee has barely played. In fact, he has not started a single match this season. Every appearance he has made has been as a substitute. Usually just for 10 or 15 minutes at the end of games when the result is already decided. This is not what Zirzkee expected when he joined Manchester United. This is not what the club expected either. Something has gone very wrong. The problem is that United have signed other forwards. Players like Matheus Cunha, Benjamin Sesko, and Brian Mbeumo have come in and jumped ahead of Zirzkee in the pecking order. He has fallen down the ladder so far that he cannot even see the top anymore. Zirzkee is not happy about this. Not happy at all. He has already started conversations with Manchester United about leaving in January. He wants out. He wants to go somewhere he will actually play football. This is completely understandable. Zirzkee is 23 years old. These should be his best years. He should be playing regular football, scoring goals, developing his game. Instead, he is sitting on the bench at Manchester United going nowhere. There is another factor making this even more urgent. Zirzkee plays for the Netherlands national team. Or at least he wants to. But if he is not playing club football, he will not get called up for international duty. Next year is a World Cup year. Every player dreams of playing in the World Cup. For Zirzkee, time is running out. If he spends the whole season on the bench at United, he will miss out on the World Cup. That would be devastating for him. So a January move makes perfect sense for Zirzkee. He needs to revive his career. He needs to find a club where he will play. Where he can score goals and remind everyone what he is capable of. The question is, where would he go? Several clubs have been mentioned as possible destinations. In Italy, Juventus, AC Milan, and Como have all shown interest. This makes sense because Zirzkee knows Serie A. He played there for Bologna. He was successful there. Going back to Italy could be the perfect move to get his career back on track. Juventus would be a huge move. They are one of the biggest clubs in the world. But they have their own problems right now. They are not the force they used to be. Zirzkee might find it just as difficult to play regularly there as he does at United. AC Milan could be a better fit. They need forwards. They like to develop young players. Zirzkee could get opportunities there. Como are newly promoted and probably cannot afford Zirzkee. But you never know in football. Stranger things have happened. The key question is whether any move would be permanent or just a loan. United probably don't want to give up on Zirzkee completely yet. They paid good money for him. They still believe in his potential. A loan with an option to buy might be the solution. This would give Zirzkee the chance to play and prove himself. If he does well, the loan club could make the move permanent. If he struggles, he would come back to United and everyone would try again. But I am not sure Zirzkee would accept a loan. He might want a permanent move. He might want to close the Manchester United chapter completely and start fresh somewhere else. This is understandable. Sometimes transfers just don't work out. Sometimes a player and a club are not a good fit. There is no shame in admitting that and moving on. For Manchester United, selling Zirzkee would free up wages and squad space. We could use that money to sign a midfielder or another position we need. It would be better than keeping an unhappy player who is not contributing. The situation with Zirzkee feels more urgent than Mainoo's. While Mainoo might still have a future at United, Zirzkee's time here looks like it is coming to an end. A January exit seems likely. Benjamin Sesko, a side note on recent performance. Let me quickly mention Benjamin Sesko here because his name came up in the information provided and it connects to our forward situation. There was an article claiming Sesko plays for Manchester United and talking about his performance for Slovenia against Kosovo in a World Cup qualifier. This is completely wrong. Sesko does not play for Manchester United. He plays for RB Leipzig in Germany. This was clearly a mistake by whoever wrote that article. Maybe they confused him with another player. Maybe they were just sloppy with their research. Either way, it is important to clear this up. The confusion might come from the fact that Manchester United have been linked with Sesko in transfer rumours. He is exactly the type of young, talented striker we should be looking at. He has been scoring goals for Leipzig and for Slovenia. He would be a great signing if we could get him. But right now, he is not our player. He is Leipzig's player. And given how well he is doing there, it would take a huge offer to prize him away. Still, it is worth mentioning because it shows the kind of forward United should be targeting. Young, hungry, proven at a good level, with potential to become world-class. That is the profile we need. Why January movements matter for our season. Let's step back and think about the bigger picture. Why does all this January transfer activity matter so much? The reason is simple. The decisions we make in January could determine how successful our season is. If we bring in the right midfielder, we could push for a top 4 finish and maybe even win a trophy. If we let unhappy players leave and bring in fresh blood, we could revitalize the squad. But if we get it wrong, if we sell players without replacing them properly, if we fail to address our weaknesses, then we could struggle in the second half of the season. January windows are always difficult. Clubs don't want to sell. Players don't want to move mid-season. Prices are inflated. Everything is rushed. But sometimes you have to take risks and make bold moves. Manchester United need to be brave. We need to identify our priorities and go after them aggressively. If that means paying a bit extra for Belieber or Wharton or Anderson, so be it. If that means letting Zirzkee leave even though we just signed him, so be it. The worst thing we could do is nothing. Standing still while our rivals strengthen would be a disaster. We are already playing catch-up to the top teams. We cannot afford to fall further behind. Balancing ins and outs. One of the big challenges in January is balancing the squad. If we let Mainoo and Zirzkee leave, we lose bodies. We lose options. Even if they are not playing regularly now, they provide cover. They can step in if we get injuries. So if they go out, we need to bring players in. Not just any players, but quality players who will improve us. This is where